I stumbled upon 3 disturbing true stories that turned my world haunted. I never should have opened that door. My heart raced as I stood there, staring at the darkness beyond. I was just another Tuesday coffee brewing, a podcast playing softly in the background. But that day would shatter my normalcy. The room felt heavy. Shadows danced along the walls, whispering to me in hushed tones. I brushed off the chill creeping up my spine. Just the wind, I thought. Nothing more. But then, I heard it again. A faint rustling, like the scratching of nails on wood. My pulse quickened. I rolled my eyes, trying to convince myself it was nothing. I turned my back to the door, trying to shake off the feeling, but it wouldn't leave me. The air was thick, tinged with something metallic, like blood. I tried to push it out of my mind. I flicked on the lights, cringing at the flickering bulbs. They cast eerie shadows, warping the space around me. I could hear that rustling again, closer this time. My breath hitched. A prickle of fear went down my spine. Was it my imagination? Or was something in here with me? I stood frozen, every muscle tense, my mind racing. I caught a glimpse of movement from the corner of my eye. My heart stopped. I turned slowly, dread pooling in my stomach. The room was empty, but I could feel a presence, lurking, waiting. The whispers grew louder, curling around me like smoke. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed in the silence, something toppling over. Adrenaline surged through me. I raced to the door but stopped short. What if I was just feeding the fear, making it worse? I needed to know what was happening. So, I took a step toward the lingering darkness, the air thickening around me, and that S when I saw it. A figure, half concealed in shadows, standing just out of sight. My breath caught in my throat, a scream caught behind my lips. The world stood still, the dread coiling tighter. I could feel its eyes on me, piercing through the darkness. They were heavy, almost suffocating, and I was rooted to the spot, unable to move. Then, just like that, the lights flickered wildly, and the figure lunged forward. I screamed, the sound ripping from my lungs, echoing in the stillness. Just as quickly, the lights went out completely, plunging me into inky darkness. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The darkness was alive. It pressed against my skin like a cold, clammy hand, paralyzing me. I strained my ears in the sudden stillness, listening for any sound that might indicate where the figure had gone. Every breath I took felt laborious, thick with the chill of uncertainty. I couldn't shake the sensation that whatever had lunged at me was still there, crouching just out of sight, watching, waiting. Tentatively, I reached out to the wall, hoping to find the light switch that had become my only hope of dispelling this nightmare. Fingers trembling, I slid along the cold plaster, feeling the sharp corners like the edges of a prison cell. I fumbled, my heart racing as I desperately wished for the familiar flicker of electricity to fill the air with warmth and light. Just as I found the switch, the temperature dropped sharply, and a low growl echoed in the suffocating dark. My heart lurched, and with a jolt, I pulled my hand back as if burned. The rasping noise skittered toward me, mimicking the sound of nails clawing against the wooden floorboards. "Show yourself!" I cried out, my voice betraying me as it trembled through the darkness. I was met with silence, only the hollow echo of my desperation returning to taunt me. As if in answer, the rustling intensified, circling me, enveloping me in an air thick with malice. I could almost smell it now, a fetid, rancid odor seeping from the deepest recesses of the room. My instinct screamed at me to flee, to abandon whatever lurked in the void. But my feet felt cemented, trapped in a nightmare of my own making. I could almost hear the whispers again, words forming, swirling around me, tantalizing and horrific, coiling like smoke to strangle my resolve. Then, out of the murky depths of despair, I spotted something glistening faintly in the corner of the room. I squinted, straining my eyes as narrow slits of light seeped through the shadows. As I drew closer, the shape materialized, a shattered mirror, its jagged shards reflecting snippets of my face, twisted and warped, but there was something worse. Embedded within the cracks, I saw them, figures, faintly discernible in a web of reflections. Their mouths moved as though trying to scream, but no sound emerged. They were reaching out, silent wails captured forever in the glass, echoing my fear. Suddenly, the lights flickered back to life, harsh and blinding. I staggered back, nearly tumbling over my feet. The room was as I had left it, unchanged, normal, but the whispers ceased their clamoring, replaced by an unnerving silence. There were no signs of the figure that had taunted me. The mirror had returned to its mundane state, merely a piece of broken glass on the floor, but I felt a chill deeper than the cold air. A creeping dread settled over me, thicker than before. Wild thoughts raced through my mind. Had I merely imagined everything? Could my mind truly conjure those horrific visions? And then I caught a glimpse of the reflection, not of myself, but of something standing directly behind me. My heart plummeted. I turned slowly, dread washing over me as a heavy, overwhelming presence loomed just outside the edge of the light. There was nothing there when I spun around, but the sense of being observed lingered like a noxious fog. Gaze darted back to the mirror. The figures were still there, wide-eyed and desperate, but now they were making progress toward breaking free, inching closer to the surface of the shattered glass. I was losing my grip on what was real, and time seemed to slip through my fingers. A frantic pounding erupted outside the room, drowning out the mounting horror. I jumped, rushing toward the door. But as I placed my hand on the cold doorknob, it transformed into something grotesquely alive, pulsating under my grip. The murmurs began again, stronger now, revealing an ominous chant that grew louder with each heartbeat. I was caught, trapped in a web of supernatural dread, and the pounding crescendoed with a sinister urgency. Whatever was behind that door wanted in. I ripped the door open, ready to confront whatever nightmare awaited me. As I crossed the threshold, ready to escape the shadows of my own making, the lights flickered out one last time, plunging me back into darkness. In that pitch-black void, I felt the rush of air behind me, the unmistakable sensation of something cold reaching out, its breath brushing against my neck, and then, everything went black. I emerged from the darkness, gasping, the air crisp with a penetrating chill. I blinked furiously, my surroundings now tinged with the dull glow of a waning moon creeping into the room through the gnarled, half-shut curtains. I was outside, on the other side of the door. My heart raced as I scanned my new environment, a narrow hallway marred by peeling wallpaper and frayed carpets, the air heavy with the scent of decay. It was as if I had crossed into a different realm, one steeped in dread and infinite shadows, but before I could gather my bearings, a blood-curdling scream shattered the silence. The sound echoed from deep within the bowels of the house, reverberating off the walls, clawing at my sanity. It was visceral, raw. A part of me wanted to run, but another part, fueled by a strange sense of obligation, urged me to investigate. Drawing in a shaky breath, I plunged deeper into the darkness of the hall, each step swallowed by anticipation. The scream had faded into a haunting whisper, but as I crept along, I could hear the faint sound of sobbing. I followed it, heart racing, darting through doorways until I came across a room bathed in the faint glow of moonlight. The figures in the mirror, those tormented souls, flashed before my eyes again, begging me to help them, their desperate hands reaching out beyond the glass, begging for salvation. That I stepped into the room, and the sobbing grew louder, yet it seemed to be coming from everywhere and nowhere all at once. I desperately searched for its source when my gaze landed on an old, dusty rocking chair in the far corner, swaying slightly as though it were animated by a gentle breeze, though the air around me was still. "Please, help us." The voice was small, shaky, like a child's, but its echo sent tremors through my spine. I squinted into the shadows, willing the source of the sound to reveal itself. "It will come for you, too. You must listen." I approached the chair, breathless with apprehension. "Who are you?" What do you want from me? I didn't even know if the voice was real or just another cruel trick of my mind, but the rocking intensified, and a figure began to materialize from the darkness. It was a girl, no older than 10, with hollow eyes and skin as pale as the moonlight behind her. She stretched out her hand toward me, her thin fingers trembling as if gripping something invisible. You must leave. It summoned the others, she rasped, her words tangled in fear. They feed on pain and fear, and they want you to suffer like us. We've been trapped, forever. A surge of panic rushed through me. My world had twisted into something unrecognizable, and the shadows seemed to pulse with life, hungry and ravenous. How can I stop it? You can't. You have to, she hesitated, swallowing hard, her gaze flickering to the space behind me. You must remember the mirror. It's where it keeps its souls. Before I could ask her to clarify, the temperature dropped even further. A rush of air flowed past me, colder than ice, and the shadows coiled around my feet like snakes, anchoring me in place. The girl's features twisted in horror as she lunged forward. Run! She screamed, but the sound was snatched from the air as a shadow flared to life behind me, a monstrous form neither man nor beast. Its eyes smoldered like embered coals, its shape writhing and shifting in grotesque mimicry of humanity. Screaming, I turned to flee, my heart pounding like a war drum, but the darkness surged forward, a tidal wave of terror crashing over me. I stumbled back toward the door I had entered, only to find it an impenetrable wall, solid and steadfast. The girl disappeared into the shadows, her moonlit figure swallowed by the darkness. Help us, she cried one last time, her voice dissolving into the echo of my despair. As the creature surged closer, an all-consuming dread flooded my senses, reverberating through my bones. Shadows choked me, constricting my chest as I desperately clawed at the wall, seeking an escape that barely seemed real. And just when I thought I would be dragged into the depths of darkness, my fingers grazed the shard of glass on the floor, glimmering like a knife in the murky light. A manic idea flashed through my mind, and I lunged for it, preparing to confront the unknown, but as I swung around, the thing was gone, leaving an all-consuming void behind. But it wasn't alone. It had left something worse in its wake, a whisper that cut through the silence, a promise laced with malice: you'll never escape. With a surge of adrenaline, I pressed the shard against my palm, breathing heavily as I realized too late that the darkness was already creeping in again, twisting my mind, erasing my thoughts of escape. And then I heard it echoing laughter, enveloping me in its sinister embrace as the shadows began to dance, surrounding me with their insatiable hunger. My body trembled, the reality of my situation sinking in like a stone in the dark waters of despair. Just when I thought I could scream, the darkness pulsed, and the walls twisted tighter around me, the echo of those trapped souls crying in chorus. The glass shards slipped from my fingers, clattering against the floor as the laughter crescendoed, and everything went blank once more. Welcome back, a voice whispered in the dark, familiar yet foreign, building into a cacophony of misery. We've been waiting for you. As I regained consciousness, I felt the cold, damp floor beneath me, my heart beat a hollow drum echoing in the silence that draped the room like a suffocating shroud. The laughter had faded, but it resonated in my mind, taunting me, as though it marked the beginning of something far worse. I blinked, trying to dispel the remnants of the shadowy figure, attempting to reconstruct my reality, but the air held a weight that made it hard to breathe. I got to my knees, shivering not only from the chill but from the haunting awareness that unseen eyes were watching me. The room felt smaller, the walls encroaching, and as I scanned the area, the moonlight revealed more than I anticipated. Faded photographs hung askew, their subjects' warped faces distorted by grief or sorrowful expressions frozen in time. I recognized one photograph, unmistakably found in the house's entrance. It depicted a family, smiling, but their eyes seemed to bleed into the darkness surrounding them, crying for release. Shakily, I stood, driven by an urgent need to understand where I was and how to escape. But as I turned to leave, an inexplicable heaviness gripped my chest, pulling me back. In the corner of the room, the rocking chair creaked again, although I was certain the girl had vanished. As I approached it, driven by an unyielding curiosity, the chair swayed back and forth as if a phantom child still played upon it. "Help us, help us." The whispers multiplied, a chorus becoming an agonizing chant that crescendoed around me. I clutched my ears, wishing to drown the noise, but it seeped into my mind like poison, overwhelming and consuming. "They can't leave, neither can you," they sang, the words wrapping around me like a shroud. Suddenly, there was a crash. A door flung open, and I turned rapidly, the skin on my arms prickling in terror. The shadows started shifting again, and out stumbled a figure cloaked in darkness. It was a woman, her hair hanging in matted strands around her face, her clothes tattered and stained. "You're not safe here," she wailed, her voice a raspy echo of despair. "It's coming for you. They can sense your fear." Panic surged through me, every instinct screamed to run, but I was rooted, unwillingly entranced by the depths of her haunted eyes. "Who? What is this place?" I stammered, my voice barely a whisper. "Those who were like you," the woman replied, her gaze darting towards the doorway. "They came, hoping to find answers or escape, but they only found torment. This house thrives on breath and blood, every scream you let out feeds it." With newfound urgency, she grabbed my arm, her grip icy yet electrifying. "Listen to me, the mirrors, they're portals, they can trap your soul. Don't look into them again." Her eyes trembled with fear, and just as quickly as she had come, she spun away and dashed towards the door. "It's coming!" she wailed over her shoulder, and in an instant, the shadows enveloped her. The fear wrapped itself around my heart, squeezing tighter with each passing second. I turned to the mirror hanging crookedly on the wall, its surface rippled, revealing glimpses of distorted reflections. Tortured souls writhed, their mouths agape in silent screams. In a moment of horrific clarity, I understood, they were the echoes of those who had been consumed before, trapped behind the glass, and I was next. I took a step back, breathing heavily, but before I could turn to flee, the room shook violently. The laughter raged again, louder, an echoing chorus pulling me back toward the mirror, the shadows coalescing into a swirling vortex of dread around me. "No!" I screamed, but my voice was swallowed, absorbed into the laughter that enveloped me. The mirror's surface glimmered with a chaotic light, and in it, I saw more than just my reflection. I saw my own face twisted with fear, my eyes pleading for liberty as specters reached out a silent warning, a spectral embrace. I stumbled backward, my heart racing with a primal instinct to fight, but the air froze around me. The laughter abruptly ceased, leaving an unnatural silence that pressed heavily against my ears. A low, guttural breathing emerged from within the darkness, closer and closer, the air shimmering with a palpable malice. Just as the swirling shadows congealed into an almost humanoid form, its eyes glistening with hunger, I grabbed a jagged piece of the mirror. Before the figure could fully manifest, I swung the shard at the glass, the sound of shattering reverberating like a thunderclap through the suffocating silence. But it was too late. Behind me, the wall parted, a rift opened as if the very house were breathing. The creature lunged forward, its breath hot and rancid, and I realized, in that frantic moment of sheer terror, that I had just unlocked something far darker than I could have ever imagined. My scream, a wretched blend of horror and desperation, echoed into the void as the shadows reached out to pull me into a nightmarish abyss, and I was no longer sure which side of the glass I belonged to. As the shadows enveloped me, I felt a chill cascade deep into my bones, a bone-deep chill that numbed my very essence. The jagged remains of the mirror glinted ominously in my trembling hand, pulsing with a life of its own. Splinters caught the pale moonlight, and for a moment, I wondered if I had forged an escape or merely unleashed a horror far more insidious than I could fathom. In the chaos, the woman had vanished, and I was left alone with my stifled breath and the looming presence of the creature, a grotesque fusion of shadow and malice. But fear was a currency I couldn't afford. I thrust the shard forward, my heart pounding like a war drum. "Get back!" I cried, though the command felt pitiful and futile against the tide of encroaching darkness. The creature paused, a swirling mass of shadows and intent, its form undulating like thick smoke. Where its face should have been lay only a writhing void, and from it came a voice that dripped like acid, you think you can sever ties to this place. You are woven into its fabric, child of despair. The words slithered into my ears, and I felt them burrow deep into my psyche, igniting a fear that expanded like a cancer. Suddenly, the very walls wept, thin streams of black liquid trickled down, carving paths of despair. I stumbled backward, the mirror shard slipping from my fingers, clattering to the floor where it shattered into a constellation of reflective fragments. Each shard seems to pulse with the memories of those long trapped, whispering names long forgotten, their cries intertwining with the creature's malignant laughter. "Join us," the voice hissed, growing louder, echoing through the room, resonating in the very marrow of my being. "You cannot resist. You belong to the house." The rift expanded, sucking the air and warmth out of the room, dragging me closer to its maw. I fought back, searching for a way to escape, but every instinct to flee felt like an anchor weighing me down. The swirling shadows twisted around my legs, cold tendrils gripping tighter. I turned back just in time to see the bedroom door slam shut with a cacophonous bang, sealing my fate. In that instant, every mosaic of fear in my heart crystallized into a singular thought: I was not alone. I was merely the latest in a long line of victims who had come searching for answers and vigor. I glanced toward the mirror, remnants scattered like stars fallen from the night sky, and in each jagged piece, I could see flickers of existence long extinguished. "Help us, save us," echoed the whispers from the shards, morphing into a terrifyingly unified plead, as if the trapped souls were watching, pleading for deliverance through me. But there was something more, something darker associating with that desperate hope, a terrible hunger that promised liberation but only bound us further into darkness. The creature lurked behind me, a spectral form shifting in and out of reality, a predatory interest glimmering in the void where its eyes should be. "They cannot aid you, nor can you aid them," it crooned, inching closer. "Embrace the shadows that have claimed you." I could feel the air bristle with energy, a seismic tremor rushing through the house, vibrating with the painful wails of those lost to malevolence. "You didn't listen. They cannot escape unless you do," the voice from the liquid shadows wailed, twisting and tearing at the edges of my sanity. Panic surged anew as a colossal wave of shadow lunged forward, coiling around my throat, squeezing tighter with every desperate gasp. I grasped at it, clawing at the shadows that seemed to laugh, suffocating me under their weight of despair. Just as I was on the verge of surrendering to the encroaching blackness, I remembered the woman's warning: the mirrors. Were they truly the portals to the past or the gates to my annihilation? Drawing on every shred of willpower, I shoved free of the suffocating grasp of the creature, eyes darting to the shards on the floor, the only memories of solace left to me. With a frenetic rush, I lunged towards the largest piece, its reflection shimmering hauntingly. In its depths, I saw not only my dread but the faces of those who had come before me, gnarled and twisted from their own despair, pleading for freedom. Maybe there was a chance. Maybe by facing the darkness directly instead of cowering from it, I could unravel this nightmare. I whispered to the shadows, "I will not be consumed by you." In that moment of defiance, the house sighed, a mournful sound that resonated through the air, vibrating with age-old sorrow, a sound that hinted at something unspeakable lurking deeper within. With one final push, I grasped the shard tightly and plunged it into the thickest swirl of shadows wrapping around me, the act drawing forth a wet roar of anguish. Then everything erupted, the foundation shuddered, the walls seeming to pulsate like living flesh, and in an explosive rush, the shadows recoiled and merged, blurring the lines of reality. The mirror shards igniting a tempest of light and darkness, and I realized with horror I was mere prey in a hunt far grander than I ever understood. And then, ancient voices roared in unison, "You are the key to our curse." As the room disintegrated into chaos, the rift behind me began to pull apart the very fabric of existence. I was falling, spiraling into the unknowable depths, sensing I was plunging into a fate worse than death. My last view of the swirling shadows was a gaping maw edging closer, waiting to claim my soul as a fresh offering. With one final scream that echoed within the abyss, I fell through the rift, and the last thing I saw was my own reflection staring back from the shattered remains, smirking in cruel anticipation of the horrors yet to come. The darkness swallowed me whole, and I fell deeper into the void, an endless descent that turned my screams into whispers. For a moment, I thought I was being devoured by the shadows, erased from existence. But suddenly, I hit solid ground, collapsing onto cold, slick tiles. My heart raced as I blinked open my eyes, only to find myself in a dimly lit chamber, stagnant and fetid, the air thick like aged smoke suffused with despair. The illumination was weak, seeped through cracks in the stone walls, revealing remnants of a grotesque reality, rusted chains clinging to the walls, remnants of a long-forgotten prison that had surely held tortured souls. In the corners, shadows moved not just against the walls, but within them, writhing and pulsating as if alive. I scrambled to my feet, an instinctual dread clawing at the edges of my sanity. From the darkness emerged a low, guttural murmur, growing more distinct, a chorus of voices, layered and tangled, like a crowd in torment. "Join us," they beckoned, a twisted harmony of sobs and laughter, the very essence of suffering made palpable. I pressed my hands to my ears, but even then, their haunting serenade slipped through my defenses, slicing deep into my mind. You must remember, grim memories bloomed within me, sharpened by the fear that now infected my whole being. "I have already forgotten," I gasped, pushing against the oppressive atmosphere. "Please, I want to leave." But the shadows wrapped tighter around my throat, choking my words. My gaze darted around the chamber, searching for a way out, a sliver of hope that could lead me back to the world above, away from this festering hell. But every wall seemed insurmountable, closing in as if aware of my desperate plight. In my confusion, I stumbled against something cool and unyielding, an iron door, heavy and imposing, with chains that seemed to pulsate with power. "The door does not open for just anyone," a husky voice croaked. I spun around, my breath hitching as a figure materialized from the shadows, an emaciated woman, her eyes two hollow abysses, dark and cavernous. Her skin was stretched tight over her bones, an unsettling sight that made me recoil in horror. You were chosen," she continued, each word weighing down my already burdened spirit. "Chosen?" I echoed, the weight of the word clattering like chains in my head. "For what?" "To become part of the tapestry," she hissed, her voice like rusted metal grating against stone. "Those who pass through the mirror, they are never the same again. They become vessels, keepers of the stories that haunt this place. You think escape is simple? You are entangled in a web of sorrow, a web spun by the shadows you so foolishly fought." A sickening understanding bloomed within me. The countless souls I had seen in the mirror shards were trapped not just by darkness but by the very act of defiance I had committed. They had given up their freedom to preserve the vicious cycle. The chamber trembled as the chorus of voices roared anew, "Release us! Free yourself!" The walls vibrated with raw energy as if responding to their cries, and I staggered back, horror coursing through me. I could feel it, the vast, terrible hunger of the shadows, a maw closing in around my very soul. They were waiting, watching, hungry for my despair. "Leave me alone!" I screamed, but the shadows closed in on me, an unrelenting tide of darkness that surged with a vengeance, dragging at my feet. The woman laughed, a sound devoid of warmth, echoing through the oppressive gloom. "You cannot escape what you are, a vessel of despair, a key." The air crackled with energy as the very door I clung to began to tremble, its chains rattling like the claws of something waiting to be unleashed. I could see strange sigils etched upon its heavy surface, and the moment I touched the iron, a flash of disruption tore through me. Fractured images of a time gone by danced before my eyes. Gnarled faces, twisted bodies, and eyes alight with malevolence echoed within the confines of my mind. "You cannot unlearn," the woman rasped, inching closer, the shadows curling around her like adoring snakes. "You will know our torment. You must revel in it." Before I could react, she lunged, hands outstretched. A blinding light erupted from the door, enveloping us both and shattering the air like glass. I screamed, feeling the shards of reality slicing into me, each one a memory of pain and suffering, roaring through my soul. The last thing I saw as the light engulfed me was the woman unchanged, her smile stretching wider, revealing rows of jagged teeth that seemed to beckon me into eternal darkness. Then, silence fell that I found myself standing alone in an endless white expanse, my heart pounding in my ears. The triumphant whispers of the shadows faded, replaced by a chilling realization my surroundings shifted continually, and in the distance, figures rose who had once been the lost souls. They were bound to me now, their pain merged with my own. And then, there a mirror stood before me, flawlessly polished, reflecting my drenched eyes. I reached out, trembling, drawn irrevocably to its depths. As I peered closer, an eerie smile mirrored my own, one that promised betrayal and horror beyond reckoning. And then I felt the fear morph into something darker, a compulsion to step through, join us. The echoed pleas coiled around my neck like a noose tightening, a fiery inferno stretching into the warmth of oblivion. It was an invitation and a warning wrapped in one. Time slipped away, but I knew choice had vanished along with it. My hand trembled and then stilled, knowing that whatever awaited me on the other side would forever alter my wretched existence. The mirror's surface rippled like water, distorting my reflection into grotesque shapes that mocked my existence. I stepped back, breath caught in my throat as the whispers grew louder, swirling around me like a tempest of despair. Join us, they crooned, a symphony of anguish that enveloped my senses. Suddenly, a flash of movement seized my attention. From the corner of my eye, I spotted a figure, a small child, no more than 7 or 8, standing just beyond the edge of the white void. She was staring at me with wide, hollow eyes, her body shrouded in a tattered white dress that fluttered, though there was no breeze. "Help me," her voice was a soft, melodic sing-song laced with something sinister. "Where are you? How can I help?" I called, appalled and drawn to her simultaneously. "Are you trapped like I am?" Instead of answering, she tilted her head and pointed behind me. As I turned, I gasped. The mirror, once smooth and inviting, now rippled with darkness, showing reflections of horrific scenes, those same tortured souls writhing in anguish, their mouths forming silent screams, their faces twisted in eternal despair. "Turn back," the child urged, her voice barely a whisper. They're watching. A wave of nausea washed over me as a chilling reminder raced through my veins. Those souls, their despair was mine now. I could feel the weight of their anguish pressing down on me like a vice. The essence of their suffering coiled around my heart, tightening with every breath, drawing me nearer to the edge of oblivion. No. I refuse to be part of this. I shouted defiantly, though uncertainty crept into my voice, threatening to unravel my resolve. You all deserve freedom. Just hold on. We'll fight them. The child's eyes dimmed, and suddenly, her expression morphed into something monstrous, darkness blooming within her features. Freedom. She echoed, her voice thick with the weight of countless souls. You think you can fight them? They are part of you now. You belong to us. Before I could respond, a surge of shadow erupted from the mirror like a tidal wave, striking me with a force that knocked me to my knees. Cold tendrils coiled around my limbs, dragging me inch by inch toward the reflective surface. The world twisted and pulsed, my mind racing, drowning in the cacophony of the voices clamoring for release, hungry, insatiable. Join us, they wailed again, a chilling harmony that reverberated through me. Embrace your truth. I fought against the inky bond tightening around my throat, gasping for breath, but it was futile. The weight of their anguish tried to subdue my spirit, yet amid the terror, a flicker of determination ignited. I won't give in. I screamed, forcing every ounce of strength into my limbs, fighting a battle against both the shadows and the remnants of my own fractured will. Just as I found a foothold in my turmoil, the child closed the distance between us, her doe eyes now glinting with malice. She leaned closer, her voice a chilling whisper. Do you know what happens when you resist? It only feeds them more. Then, something changed in the atmosphere around me. A tremor of unease swept through the void, and a rumble echoed far beyond, a sound so terrible that it stopped my heart. The mirror began to darken, swirling with shadows that writhed like serpents, and from them, I heard a new voice, deep, resonating with the weight of ages long lost. You seek to escape, but the price for knowledge is steep. No. Please. I cried, panicked as the shadows squirmed, tightening like a noose, too many voices erupting once more, pressing in on all sides. The child's grin widened, revealing sharp, predatory teeth. They will never let you go. Suddenly, the floor beneath me cracked, fissures splitting the white surface, and I stumbled, eyes wide as darkness seeped through, pouring in as though the void sought to swallow me whole. The air grew frigid, and I felt the presence gain strength, rushing forward. In that moment of utter despair, with all hope slipping away, I threw myself toward the mirror, inching closer to its surface. Help me. I wish to remember, to know. As I reached to grasp the polished surface, the child lunged, shrieking, "You'll break it. And lose yourself forever." With one final desperate push, I touched the mirror. The world shattered around me, scattering into flickering fragments as the child's horrified scream echoed, an omen of my deepest fears. Then, silence fell again. I found myself suspended in darkness, but the child was no longer there. Guttural laughter reverberated through the void, my laughter mingled with theirs. I stood, disoriented and breathless, feeling them closing in, an imminent sense of doom looming large. And then, in the distance, I saw a flicker of light, gorgeously bright and breath-catching. But beside it, a shadow, monstrous and familiar, loomed, the very embodiment of my dread. "Welcome back," it slithered, its voice smooth and inviting. "Your journey has only just begun." I was about to step toward the light when I noticed a faint glimmer at my feet, an old shard of glass reflecting the horrors of my tortured past. The realization dawned like a storm. I was not escaping, I was caught in a web of cruel repetition, and worse yet, I no longer knew which path would lead me back to my humanity, and as the shadows closed around me, the last flicker of the light seemed to wane, leaving nothing but a chilling specter of uncertainty to grasp onto. A low rumble echoed through the darkness, as if the very fabric of the void was alive, thrumming with a sinister heartbeat. The dread that had settled deep within my bones surged, a silent scream clawing to escape as I tried to comprehend my fragile existence. I was an echo lost in a maze of horrors, and every breath felt like a surrender. In the midst of the swirling shadows, I realized my surroundings were not as empty as they had seemed. Forms began to materialize from the dark, grotesque silhouettes that approached with an unsettling fluidity. They were the souls I had glimpsed before, but these apparitions were now less ethereal, more tangible, their features contorted into masks of tortured despair. Hollow eyes stared deep into my soul, their mouths stretched into gaping voids, wordlessly pleading, wordlessly crying out for liberation. "Help us," one of them rasped, its voice a scraping whisper like nails on a chalkboard. "We cannot break the cycle without you." "Without me?" I echoed, confusion lacing my words. "What do you want from me? I can't even save myself." The echoes of their pain were suffocating, wrapping around me like chains, drawing me deeper into this malevolent nightmare. "Think." Another shadow hissed, the air growing dense with a mist of bitterness. "You've forgotten what you truly are. You hold the key." Off to my side, I glimpsed the flickering shard of glass again, its jagged edges sparkling with a curious glow. An intuition buried beneath layers of terror began to weave through my thoughts, offering a thread of hope amidst the surrounding darkness. Something inside me whispered that it held a truth worth grasping if I could just remember. The shadows encroached, their whispers transforming into indiscernible howls, the cacophony rising to a deafening crescendo. "Your memories are a prison." They screamed, their forms lurching closer, an avalanche of despair closing in around me. "You have to choose." In a flash, I was transported to a visceral memory, a fleeting moment of light and laughter, a time when happiness coursed through my veins like fire. I could see my mother's face, radiant and warm, a luminous smile encouraging me to explore the world. But just as quickly, that memory was engulfed, replaced by a dark spiral of chaotic laughter and torment, her visage twisting into something unrecognizable, shadowed by grief. Panic surged in my chest. It was too much. I collapsed to my knees, fists gripping my hair as the voices surged around me, mocking, jeering. I screamed, a primal sound that mirrored the anguished cries of the souls surrounding me. "No. I won't let you take me." Suddenly, as if responding to my defiance, the ground bubbled beneath me, a dark tar-like substance bubbling up through the cracks, swirling around my limbs, binding me tighter. The shadows drew back momentarily, their beady eyes glimmering with anticipation. "You are fighting your true nature," they hissed, their voices dripping with glee. In that moment of struggle, I remember the shard again, its glimmer beckoning in the darkness. I thrust out my hand, desperately reaching for it, my heart racing against the suffocation of despair. "I will find the truth," I shouted, each syllable a battle cry. My fingers grazed the glass, ice shot through my vein and visions flooded my mind, memories overlapping and colliding with each other. I was drenched in echoes of laughter, screams, moments of love and loss all twisted together in a chaotic dance of nostalgia and anguish, and then darkness fell. The laughter stopped. The shadows froze mid-motion, their eyes wide with an unearthly horror as I slipped deeper into the memories, the moments frozen in glass revealing a hidden truth. But amid the splintering images of my past, an ominous realization descended like a fog. The center of this tempest, I saw it, a grotesque figure standing amidst the chaos, its form rippling like a mirage. It cast an immense shadow, darkening everything around it, a creature of my own making, feeding on my fears, my regrets. "I know you," I breathed, realizing that it was not merely a reflection of my anguish but the embodiment of something far more sinister, the truth I had long tried to banish from my heart. "You are me," a howl erupted from the creature as it finally locked its gaze on mine, and in that instant, I understood I had not only been a victim of this darkness but had nurtured it. The weight of my past crushed down upon me, a shackle that I could no longer bear. Then, in an explosion of light, the edges of my reality began to splinter, each shard reflecting a sliver of my fractured existence. The laughter returned, but it was not alone, alongside it came the sound of unearthly wailing, and through the rift, a tangible entity emerged, a distorted visage of my own face twisted in anguish, a mockery of everything I had ever been. "Welcome back to the fold," it rasped, the shadows swirling with dynamic fury. "We've been waiting for you." I could feel the hands of the darkness descending upon me, relentless and cold, pulling me away from the light that flickered tenuously in the distance. The mirror stood ahead, now reflecting my own horrified expression, a haunting reminder of what awaited me if I surrendered. This was the point of no return. I had only seconds to decide, face the agonizing truth or be fragmented beyond recognition. And just as the tendrils of despair grasped for my throat, I screamed anew, a sound mingled with defiance and fear, "No. I will not become you." The shadows roared, and the shifting ground buckled beneath me. I stood at the precipice of the abyss, a choice between light and shadow, and then everything shattered once more, a universe collapsing in on itself, plunging me into the unknown. And just as the last remnants of the light flickered and vanished, I felt a jolt surge through me, a violent reminder that one way or another, the horrors would come for me, and this time, I wouldn't be alone. The darkness enveloped me. I thought I had faced the heart of my own nightmare, but as I was propelled into the unknown, I was met with a new horror, a cold, damp chamber with walls that pulsed like a heartbeat, as if the darkness itself was alive, breathing, and watching. The ground felt uneven beneath my feet, and the moment I regained my balance, a steady drip echoed through the still air, hollow and ominous like the ticking of a clock counting down to a long-forgotten doom. That I squinted into the gloom, struggling to acclimatize my eyes, but the darkness held secrets, hiding shapes that were too far for my vision to capture. Whispers curled through the air, tangling with the murmur of the dripping sound. They beckoned me, threadbare voices weaving tales of despair, chaos, and unspeakable trauma. "We are here, join us forever." An icy chill ran down my spine as I moved forward, each squelching step resonating like a drumbeat, a morbid invitation to something that dwelled just out of sight. I stumbled across something soft and wet beneath my foot. I recoiled, and in the breathless silence, the unmistakable scent of iron flooded my senses. Blood that I dropped to the ground, heart pounding against my ribcage, forcing desperate gulps of air into my lungs. My fingers glided across the cold, slick surface, and I recoiled again as my hand slapped against something solid, an object, a body, unyielding and still. "No!" I gasped, scrambling back, recognizing the silhouette. The ceiling above shifted faintly, revealing the features of the corpse half submerged in the filth, a woman's face, unrecognizable but not unfamiliar, her mouth twisted in a soundless scream, eyes wide open, glassy and empty. My heart raced as familiarity clawed at the back of my mind. Who are you? Release her, the shadows whispered, hissing through the walls that seemed to pulse with life. She is one of many. Release her. I stammered, the weight of dread building within me. Why? What have you done? Her past is your present, they hissed back, their voices merging into an overwhelming chorus, vibrating through the very marrow of my bones. You must face the truth. We nurture the decay of forgotten souls. Use it, and you will find freedom. In that moment, a wailing erupted from the woman's lips, an agonized sound intertwined with the pulse of the walls. Her mouth moved but no words escaped, only silent terror streamed forth, coating the ground with a thick layer of despair. As I struggled to understand, figures began to emerge from the shadows surrounding her, other bodies, their faces twisted in agony, beckoning to me with vacant expressions that mirrored her own. They slithered forward like broken marionettes, limbs contorted as if the very essence of their being had been ripped apart and reassembled in horror. The air thickened with their lost memories, spiraling around me, a tether binding them to the realm of the living. Help us please, they chorused, voices indistinguishable, yet charged with longing and dread. With every pleading word, the walls trembled, the blood beneath my fingers pulsed like a heartbeat, my own heart racing alongside. I was choking on their grief like a suffocating shroud, paralyzed by the reality of their eternal torment. Leave me! I shrieked, squeezing my eyes shut against the onslaught, but their anguished cries reverberated through my mind, tearing at the seam of my sanity. I pressed my palms to my ears, yet the echoes persisted, wrapping around me like dark tendrils of despair. You are the key. They cried relentlessly. Release us. Suddenly, the woman's body lurched, her limbs twitching unnaturally as if reanimated by unseen forces. Her eyes gleamed with metallic desperation. You must remember. She screeched, twisting in ways human bodies should never bend, every syllable a dagger slicing through my composure. It's in you. Then I felt it again, the shard of glass, lurking just outside the recesses of my consciousness. Its glimmer promised release, a doorway to uncover the pain that had become this wretched cycle. My mind teetered on the edge of a precipice, reality fraying like a well-loved tapestry. If I grasped it, perhaps I could unveil the truth and finally free these souls. But at what cost? The walls shuddered in response to my internal war, the cries and wails merging into a chorus of desperation. You belong to us. They screeched, their fervor rising, the light glimmering ahead beginning to fade more rapidly, as if fearful of my choice. The darkness twisted and warped around me, morphing into something monstrous, looming larger as the air thickened with impending doom. Time stretched and warped, I was caught in an overwhelming loop of betrayal and horror, and in the tempest of despair gathering around me, the bodies grew still, and I felt those hollow eyes bore into my very soul. And then, with utmost clarity, the shadows recoiled as a new element entered the fray, a rip in the darkness. From its depths, a figure emerged, cloaked in shadows, a visage both familiar and grotesque, its body fluid and constantly shifting, a reminder of the darkness I had fought to escape. Join us, it whispered, extending a hand toward me, filled with shadows that dripped like liquid grief. And you too can break free. The moment suspended like a breath held forever, as the shadows surged, crowding closer, dragging the memories of those lost souls with it. I was trapped between the wretched cries of the damned and the alluring promise of union with my darkest self, the choice looming so close I could feel the cold breath of despair on my neck. In that moment, I realized I would not only have to face what I had created, but I would have to decide whether I would join them in this eternal gloom or fight to find my own light. The choice weighed heavily in the shaded room, and right as I felt the darkness envelop me once more, I took one last glance at the crying woman, a reflection of my own fear, and I screamed, I choose, and before I could finish, a blinding flash erupted from the shadows, consuming everything in its path, forcing me into another realm, another spiral of horrors yet to be faced, leaving me with no memory of what regret awaited. The echoes of despair receded, yet their weight lingered, coiling tightly around my heart. As I emerged from the unsettling void, a bone-deep chill swept through me, chilling every thought, every lingering hope. I found myself in a room steeped in shadows, a warped reflection of my own fears and failures. The walls pulsed, as if they shared a heartbeat with the darkness surrounding me. "Welcome back," whispered a voice so familiar it sent chills racing down my spine. I turned slowly, dread pooling within me as I realized I was alone, or at least, I thought I was. The room felt too familiar, its shape contorting with time like a memory distorted by pain. I spotted the shattered mirror in the far corner, the last vestige of light, reflecting fractured images that seemed to reach out for me. Just beyond it lingered something darker, a lingering presence just at the edge of my perception. "Help us," the echoes murmured, a cacophony of desperate pleas that sent tremors through my resolve. Faces flashed within the shards, each one a haunting reminder of those who had come before me, those who were now forever entwined with the darkness. I had betrayed not only my own soul but theirs as well. "We've been waiting for you to return," the voice continued, now a whisper that coursed through the air like smoke, curling around me, suffocating me. When I blinked, I saw their eyes hollowed, pleading, yet simultaneously accusing. "You are our tether. Your pain fuels us, keeps the darkness alive." The figures morphed, danced in and out of articulation, a horrible performance crafted from agony. They echoed in anguish, "Feed the despair, embrace it." "No!" I screamed, the word tearing from my lips like a desperate lifeline. But deep inside, something shifted. I felt the horror of my truth wrapped tighter around me, a realization that twisted like a knife, too potent to ignore. I had sought knowledge, closure, escape, and now, through defiance, I had become part of this malevolent tapestry. Suddenly, the shadows coalesced before my eyes, reshaping into the grotesque figure I had seen once before, the embodiment of my dread, a mirror image of my inner chaos. "You cannot escape what you truly are," it hissed, its voice a choir of the damned. "You are a keeper of their stories, a vessel forged in torment, and with each breath, you bring them back to life." Breath caught in my throat, the horror of the truth surged like poison through my veins. I was never meant to fight this. I was chosen to bear witness, to hold their stories in the depths of my being. As despair crashed over me like waves against the shore, I suddenly understood the twisted game of the house. It craved stories of pain, feeding relentlessly on fear, and I was its newest scribe. The shadows flickered closer, I could almost feel their breath against my skin, cold and clammy. They whispered promises, seducing me with tales of suffering, exchanging liberation for surrender. "Join us," they beckoned, "and you will never be alone again." But as their taunting words wrapped around me, I felt a surge of defiance shatter the paralysis. "No!" I cried. "I will not let your terror define me." I cast my gaze toward the mirror, that jagged reflection of my fractured soul. "I will not be the keeper of your pain." With every ounce of strength left in me, I lunged toward the glass, clutching a piece of my past, and plunged it deep into the darkness that loomed before me. The air crackled with energy, and for a moment, silence reigned like a forgotten prayer, then it erupted. The darkness roared in rage, shadows writhing and twisting as they recoiled from the light pooling from my shard. And in its brilliance, I saw them, the tormented souls, their chains now weakened, their screams shifting from terror to an unexpected hope. "We can be free!" they cried, their voices rising in harmonious agony as the light continued to surge, illuminating the room and revealing the very fibers of the darkness that defined it. I felt the weight of their pain, coursing through me, and suddenly, I understood. I could not abandon them, I could choose to hold their agony, to rewrite our shared narrative. As the creature formed an image of hatred, looming before me, desperate to pull me back into the depths of despair, I held fast to the shard, its light illuminating the path forward. "I embrace you!" I shouted, invoking every ounce of belief in my heart. "We will rise from this darkness." And then, everything shattered, the walls split apart, disintegrating like memories fading into dust. The darkness screamed, a wailing sound filled with rage and betrayal, a grotesque symphony of despair as the whispers began to scatter. In the tumult, I felt myself floating, lifted beyond the agony that had consumed me, severed from the web of darkness that had kept me tethered. In an instant, I was free, but as clarity surrounded me, the realization crashed in like a wave of ice. The horror was not vanquished. I could still hear the faint echoes of laughter, the whispers of longing alive deep within my psyche. Though I was free of its walls, its tendrils would forever linger, nesting within the reservoirs of my memory. The light dimmed around me, and I understood the true curse was not just the house but the part of it that resided in me, craving darkness, feeding on my fears. It had promised liberation, but I had unwittingly fostered its essence, making me a part of its timeless hunger. As I stared into the now familiar abyss, I knew my journey was not over, it was merely the beginning of a new tale. For the darkness still lingered, beckoning me with its siren call, and as I turned to face the world anew, I realized, the shadows would never truly flee, not for me, not for any soul burdened by the weight of despair. "We will meet again," a voice echoed behind me, and a chilling smile formed on my lips, because I knew the darkness inside was my greatest fear and my unending companion, and as the sun dipped below the horizon, I heard the whispered promise among the shadows, "You cannot escape what you have become."